live every day as if it were the last, because before you know it, time goes past and life's just not that long. Tell all you love that you love them so, because even if you do, they might not know, and one day we'll all be gone. Taste the wind, don't let it blow on by. Sing songs of love, let the music get you high. And when it's said,
The marriage vows are promising each other to be in love and make love with only each other until death do us part. Many people want to get married. So I speak now to you, whether you be a woman and a man wanting to get married, or if you're two women wanting to get married, or two men wanting to get married. Many questions to think about deeply, alone and with each other. Do you both want kids? If only one of you wants to have kids, what then? If both of you want kids, how many? Do you agree on how to raise kids? How differently were you both raised by your parents? Are you both opposed to hitting kids, spanking kids, cursing kids? If any of your kids come out gay, lesbian, bisexual, or trans, will you both be fully accepting? Are you both religious? The same religion? If one of you is not religious, will you raise your kids to be religious or not? If you're in different religions, how will you decide which religion for your kids? Do you both know and feel loved by each other's families? When you wrong each other, do you apologize? Do you forgive? Many couples fight like crazy over money and bills. Does one of you enjoy living simply? Does the other want to buy crap no one needs? If so, do you want a bank account together, or do you want to have separate accounts? Do you want to live in a small place or a mansion? Do you want to live in a low-income community with people of all colors, or in an upper-income community of mostly white people? Does one of you need and want much more peace and quiet than the other? Much of the time, no TV, no radio, no music. Do you each stay up late, or do you get up early? Do you both enjoy many visits from friends in your home? Is one of you much more neat, wanting the house to always look picture perfect? And does the other want the house to feel relaxed and lived in? Does one of you eat only healthy food, the other mostly junk food? Do either of you drink booze or use other drugs? Are you truthful about everything with each other? Or do you lie about anything? Do you each have long-time close friends, both male and female? Are both of you or one of you committed to living fairly in our world family of over 7 billion people? As of now, are you both strongly attracted to each other? If sex is not important to both of you now, what if someday that changes for one of you? My dear friend Tom, a preacher, married a woman, and years later, after marriage, Tom realized his strong attraction to certain men. He and his wife stayed together, but she never fully accepted his sex with men. My friend Beverly knew before she married Frank that he was attracted to men. And that made it much better for both Beverly and Frank. But often one partner has not realized or accepted his or her attraction for persons of the same gender before they get married to someone of the other gender. If either of us see or meet someone we feel sexually attracted to, do we feel free to tell each other, even if we do not have sex with the person we saw or met? Are we free to share our honest feelings of attraction? Are you much more sexually attracted to other persons than you are to your own partner? Do both of you enjoy cuddling together, naked and sober? Are you or is your partner repressing big parts of who you are to stay together? Can we argue vigorously and still feel deeply connected? Do you realize you each have very mixed feelings about each other and your relationship? That it's not always moonlight and roses. Mixed feelings in close relationships, romantic relationships, family relationships, friend relationships, are part of being human. If either of you is starving sexually, are you turning to booze? If either of you are starving sexually, are you turning to gambling? If either of you are starving sexually, are you hogging out on junk food? If either of you are starving sexually, are you fighting over stupid things? Or are you becoming workaholics to keep you out of the house and your mind distracted from your starvation for intimacy? Have we each faced and gotten rid of the shame and guilt about sex and about being naked with each other, with the lights on? Can we see each other's bodies naked and enjoy it? and not feel one bit of shame or guilt? Have you each faced and gotten rid of the shame and guilt you may have been taught as children? Living together, married under the same roof, harms many friendships. Living together, married under the same roof, destroys many friendships. We need to think before we jump. Are either or both of you making big changes in how and how much you travel, how much you spend, how much you consume, pollute, to slow your part in the climate crisis? What about your politics? Nearly the same or very different? Where do you each stand on racism, on white supremacy, on justice, police brutality, U.S. wars? Before making a solemn vow to being romantic with only each other until one of you dies, try living together under the same roof for 6 months or a year to see how your relationship works. Is either of you very insecure and jealous? Do you prefer to sleep in the same bed or separate beds? If someday you separate, do you each refuse to blame it all on the other? If someday you separate, do you each refuse to see and speak about the other as a devil? Is there anything about yourself you're afraid to tell your partner? Anything? Is there any question you're afraid to ask your partner about his or her past life, past relationships, his or her beliefs, his or her feelings? Do you both enjoy warmly hugging each other when you're alone and in public? And if not, why not? Is passionate sex very important for one or for both of you? How often? If very important for only one of you, where does that leave your romantic relationship? If you both treasure passionate sex, do you tell each other exactly what turns you on and what turns you off in making love? Can you imagine a peaceful separation from that partner? Or do you think it would be bitter? How does your partner speak about past boyfriends or girlfriends? How do you think and speak about past boyfriends or girlfriends? Do either of you hold grudges? If either of you becomes severely disabled with dementia or some other serious problem, no longer capable of sex, Do you give your partner permission to have sex with someone else? I treasure passionate romance with men. I treasure hot, affectionate sex with a healthy man who has no shame, no guilt about sex with men. A man I'm attracted to and who is attracted to me. But I do not want to marry any man, no matter how much I'm in love with him, no matter how strongly attracted I am to him. I can be openly and deeply in love with more than one man at the same time. So I would feel trapped. I would feel caged. I would feel suffocating in marriage to just one man. I refuse to make this promise that I would later regret. I aim to tell the truth and not to make a foolish promise I would want to break. Eve Ensler is a long-time committed activist known worldwide for her stand for the full and equal human rights of women. Eve Ensler wrote the Vagina Monologues. Eve Ensler's dad sexually abused her and beat her when she was a young child. Eve Ensler wrote the 2019 book, The Apology, as if she were now her dead father trying to understand, trying to explain the evil he did to her when she was a young child, sexually abusing her, beating her. Not to pretend the evil he did to her was okay, it was not, and not to justify or approve his evil, but to understand and explain why he did what he did to his little daughter. She wrote this book trying to get inside of his heart and mind and soul what brought him to commit such acts against her. Her father was not born evil. No one on earth is born evil. Eve Ensler said, writing this book, The Apology, is the title of it. This book helped her greatly to forgive him and to heal from that awful abuse. You and I cannot be free when we have someone chained inside of us. We cannot be free if we refuse to understand and to forgive those who have hurt us the most. An estimated $1 million or more in lifetime costs per person connected to smoking cigarettes. An estimated $1 million or more in lifetime costs per person connected to smoking cigarettes. the cost of the cigarettes, but far greater are the huge medical bills for treating lung cancer, heart disease, and many other awful conditions caused by smoking cigarettes. An estimated $1 million. Of all 50 states in 2020, New Mexico, sadly, had the highest rate of deaths connected to booze. Of all 50 states in 2020, New Mexico had the highest rate of deaths connected to booze. In the Bible, the Apostle Paul wrote, "Let your women keep silence in the churches, for it is not permitted unto them to speak, but they are commanded to be under obedience." Paul in the Bible wrote, "Let the woman learn in silence with all subjection. I do not allow a woman to speak, nor to usurp authority over the man, but to be in silence." This is what the Apostle Paul in the Bible wrote. Talk about the Taliban in Afghanistan today refusing to respect equal human rights of women. Millions of Christians of different denominations in this country believe the Bible is the inspired, infallible Word of God. The Bible puts women below men in many verses. Many. If I were a woman, how would I feel? And as a man, I support full equal rights for women. So I damn the Bible's many verses putting down women below men. And in the Bible, the Apostle Paul wrote, "Servants, obey your masters in all things. Please your masters well in all things. Be obedient to your masters with fear and trembling." Paul wrote this crap in the Bible. The Apostle Peter wrote, "Servants, be subject to your masters with all fear." And sadly, the Bible never once, from beginning to end, says slavery is always evil. Many white masters in the South who bought, sold, owned, enslaved black people were faithful church members. Went to church Sunday after Sunday and sang, prayed to God. And they believed God did not condemn slavery. The Bible says, "Servants, obey your masters in all things." So, if the white master beats your black brother for learning to read, if the white master rapes your black mother, obey in all things your masters. What would black women activists, Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, who risked their lives to take enslaved black people to freedom. What would those black women activists and many other men and women black activists, past and present, say about this evil garbage in the Bible? Servants, obey your masters in all things. Be obedient to your masters with fear and trembling. In the Bible, the Apostle Paul wrote, "Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power but of God. The powers that be are ordained of God." Were Roman emperors who threw Christians to the lions ordained of God? Were the Nazis that mass murdered millions of Jews and gypsies and gay men and communists and handicapped people, were they ordained of God? Was Stalin ordained of God? Was Hitler ordained of God? Are the dozens of dictators today, communists and capitalists, who torture and murder their people, are they ordained of God? Was the U.S. government that stole the homelands and mass murdered Native Americans ordained of God? Was the U.S. government that has murdered millions in Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, and dozens of other nations ordained of God? When two nations are mass murdering each other in war, are both governments ordained of God? Absolutely evil bullshit in the Bible. And yet millions of U.S. Christians of many denominations say the Bible is the infallible, inspired Word of God. In the Bible, Jesus called God Father dozens of times. Jesus said, "Your heavenly Father feeds the birds. Are you not of more value than the birds?" So Jesus is saying we can trust God to feed us. But think of the millions of people for thousands of years, people of all ages, ethnicities, men and women, who have starved to death. Many of them begging God for help as their babies died of starvation. If Jesus said those words, if Jesus actually said those words, he was severely out of touch with reality. False advertising for God. Jesus said, "Not one sparrow will fall to the ground without your Father's will. You are of more value than many sparrows." Are the many atrocities suffered by millions throughout history according to God the Father's will? Sadly, as a sincere young Christian preacher 55 years ago, I did not question deeply this poison crap. Jesus said, according to the Bible, if you then who are evil know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father who is in heaven give good things to those who ask him? Sadly, that's false advertising for God. I swallowed it. I taught it. And I thank many people who helped me, little by little, to open my eyes. I wish, now hear me on this, I wish we had a loving, fair, all-powerful parent God who helped all people who prayed for help. But all the wishing in the world does not make that true. And if God did not hear and help millions in the Nazi concentration camps and those going into the gas chambers, why would I expect God to hear and help me? Many military veterans never admit to themselves or to others they were conned to become soldiers. And many people of whatever religion, not just Christianity, never admit to themselves or to others they were conned to become religious. Helen Caldecott was a children's doctor from Australia. Helen Caldecott became one of the strongest activists in the world against nuclear weapons. Helen Caldecott realized that more important than doctoring individual kids was to do her damnedest to oppose nuclear weapons that endanger all kids on Earth. I heard her speak many years ago here in New Mexico. I heard her in Chicago, Washington, D.C. She met personally with President Reagan in the White House. She helped to wake him up to the hell of nuclear war. Helen told us, if nuclear war happens, and if we have some minutes of warning before we're mass murdered, and if her daughter says to her, Mom, why didn't you do something? Helen wanted to be able to tell her daughter, I did what I could to prevent it. And I, Don Schrader, cannot stop the insane addiction of the U.S. government and other governments to building nuclear weapons for the largest mass murder, suicide in human history. And I, Don Schrader, cannot stop the climate crisis endangering all life on Earth. But I choose to live simply to slow the climate crisis as far as my part. I've owned no car for 42 years. I would not keep any car if given to me free. I have flown in no planes for at least 30 years. I eat no meat, no dairy. I live in one small, sunny room, 9.5 by 12 feet, and I enjoy it immensely. I have paid not one damn bloody penny of federal income tax for 43 years. Almost half of federal income tax goes for U.S. wars, past, present, future, and for nuclear weapons of mass murder. Regardless of what governments do, regardless of what corporations do, regardless of what my friends, my neighbors do, I am responsible for my life, my example to others, and my public stands I take. I grew up on a farm in Illinois, 100 miles west of Chicago. I went to a one-room country school, one teacher, for grades 1 through 6. And when I was in first grade, at least one time, it's a foggy memory, I sat next to sixth grader Roger Malataka to share a music book. Not enough books for everyone to have one. And I felt a special attraction to tall, dark Italian Roger in this mostly white community. I did not fantasize about sex with Roger. I did not know about those wonderful pleasures, male with male. But I felt a special, cozy, at-home magnetism for Roger. Now, I don't know if Roger, as he grew older, was gay, bisexual, straight. He moved away. Sadly, I do not know if Roger is alive or dead. And when I was 12, teenager David worked shirt-free on our farm. I was very attracted to him. And once when I was maybe 14, my mother came into our bathroom upstairs and caught me masturbating. She insisted that I promise not to masturbate. And after that, I felt terribly torn between not wanting to break my promise to my mother and wanting to keep enjoying my cock and coming. So I started masturbating in a different way. In high school, when certain male athletes came into the study hall, the library, the invisible spotlight of my attention focused on them. I wanted them. I needed them. But they apparently did not feel the same toward me. 2 male-female couples in my class got pregnant before graduation. Now, I'm glad I did not have a child to parent, but I definitely envied them for having sex. No teacher in high school, no teacher in college told me that many well-known men, past and present, were gay or bisexual, enjoying sex and romance with men. Michelangelo, Walt Whitman, Leonardo da Vinci, Baird Rustin, Langston Hughes, and multitudes more. Now, if you're black or brown or native or Asian, how would you feel if your teachers never spoke about well-known black, brown, native, Asian people, but only about white people? And if you're a woman, how would you feel if your teachers never spoke about well-known women, past or present, only about men? And after I became a sincere young Christian preacher at age 20, I became friends with many teenage Chicano guys in that town, Sterling, Illinois. And some told me of girls they liked and they dated. I envied them for having sex with girls. I never had, even though I was older than they were. I had no openly gay or bisexual friends. I knew several Bible verses condemned sex between men, but the same Bible, sadly, in hundreds of verses, supported men killing men in war. The same Bible that had verses condemning sex between men had verses supporting slavery. I did not know that millions of men, past and present, have been in love with men made love with men in passionate romance. I found out years later that even David and Jonathan in the Bible were in love with each other. And later, in my 20s, when I was no longer a pastor, I told my mother I wanted to have sex with someone. I assumed it would be a woman. But who? I had never seriously dated any woman. And later, I drove from Albuquerque to Juarez, Mexico, and I had sex with a woman sex worker there. The first time in my life with another human being. But I came before I would have entered her. I was so eager. I had waited for years. Premature ejaculation. How sad that I, in my 20s, felt I had to go to another nation and pay a pimp to have sex with a woman stranger whom I was not attracted to, in order to have sex with another human being for my first time. My Spanish was not good, still isn't. Her English was not good. It was far from romantic for both her and me. And later I had sex with a couple women in Albuquerque, one young woman in Illinois in the town where I had been pastor years before. And one night at the Latin American Social Club, I danced with Connie. And she said she might not live long. A young woman. She wanted sex with me. I knew she was living with a man, so I asked her, well, what about him? She said they were liberated. They were free to have sex with other people. So I told my dear friend Johnny, who has since died, who was there at the dance that night, about the situation. And Johnny said he thought she was lonely, and whatever happens, happens. I went to her place after the dance. Her boyfriend was not home. She and I had sex. And after sex, while I was still lying naked in their bed, she kept going to the window watching for her boyfriend. And when he came, she went after him. Where had you been? Doing what? With whom? And I was still lying naked in their bed. He came into the bedroom. He saw me. He was probably kind of shocked to see me there. He knew of me. I pretended to be asleep. I'm glad he did not attack me. They kept arguing, going after each other. Finally, they both went to sleep in other rooms in the house. And as the dawn broke in the east, I put on my clothes and left. I was a wiser man. I learned that some people, now this isn't true of all, but some people who say they are sexually liberated are not sexually liberated. Still hung up on jealousy, trying to cage the other person. Learned from my sad experience. Do not be conned as I was. Actually, I was sexually attracted to two of her brothers, but I never had sex with them. For many years, while my parents were still living, I lived part-time there in Illinois, part-time here in Albuquerque. In late 1976, over 45 years ago, my friends Steve and Cease here told me they wanted to take me to a place I might like. And they took me to a gay bar on Central. Never before in my life had I been in a gay bar. I met a young Chicano from Cuba, New Mexico. He and I had sex at my place. That was my first time with any male. I was 31. And soon after that, I told my mother. And she said she had never known there were gay people in the world. I had feared losing some of my many straight male friends if I came out gay. And some did back off from me and turn cold. But I'm glad to say that one of those friends apologized to me years later for turning cold toward me. And since that first sex with a man 45 years ago, I had sex with many men, dozens and dozens of men, in Albuquerque, Chicago, San Diego, New York City. In fact, I remember in New York City having sex with a man outside along the piers within sight of the Statue of Liberty. In Madison, Wichita, Peoria, San Antonio, Ohio, and on our Illinois farm. I tasted romance with some of them. Bisexual Jose from Mexico. I met him when he was 23 at the Spence Hot Springs at Jemez. I had sex more times with Jose than any other man in my life. Over 70 times, I kept track. I deeply loved Jose. And sadly, he got involved with drugs. He was locked up. His green card was taken away. He was sent back to Mexico. Dear Roberto died of AIDS at 31. I chose my plot at San Jose de Armijo Cemetery, close to his grave. Roberto was not his real name, but that's what I called him. My beloved Don, who died in a car crash at 25, and his mother had me in charge of his memorial service. Another Don from northern New Mexico, from Taos Pueblo. David from Michigan, whose father was Palestinian American. He and I met at a gay nudist gathering in Ohio in August of 1986, over 35 years ago. And it was a beautiful nature place. And with nature and with him, and it was the first time in my life, he was the first man in my life that I wept sucking David's toes as well as many other parts of him. As we had sex in that beautiful outdoor paradise. He and I danced together in Illinois at a Mexican bar. It was not a gay bar. And no one attacked us, no one threatened us. So often we hold the keys to our own prisons of fear. Now, I realize there are many places on earth that if he and I had danced together, we could have been shot or at least arrested. But there are also many places where we can enjoy freedom to dance man with man. And before my mother died in 1982, I often told her about my having sex with men. And once she told me she wished she could be a mouse in the corner. She meant to watch me have sex with a man. Sadly, that never happened. I introduced her to Jaime, a young gay Chicano in Houston, when we went there for consultation with a nutrition doctor because of her many serious conditions. Jaime deeply impressed my mother, but he and I never became lovers. In the 1970s, when I was in Illinois, I wrote to my friend Patty here in Martineztown, telling her I am gay. And she wrote me back a good letter. I probably still have that letter. I have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of letters from people over the years. And she told me that in that letter that she knew that I am gay from the first day she met me years before. Years before I had sex with any male. And when I was here in Albuquerque, I wrote to my friend Lupio Lalde in Illinois, telling him I am gay. And he wrote me back a good letter saying he knew I was gay from the first day he met me years before. Often friends of gay or bisexual persons know years before the gay or bisexual persons come out, if they ever do, and some never do, sadly. I would rather be hated and rejected by some people for who I am than be loved by them for living a lie. My mother taught me to tell the truth. She hated lies. I treasure my strong sexual and romantic attraction to certain men. Life is too precious to fake. Romance too precious to hide. And if you're just coming out, tell adult friends you know, adult friends that you trust, who have already openly gay friends. But if you're under 18 and you know your parents are strongly against being gay, you may need to wait until you are at least 18 and can move out before you tell them. Sugar can cause or worsen 60 diseases. 60 diseases. Sugar can cause or worsen acne, alcoholism, allergies, anxiety, arthritis, appendicitis, asthma, behavior problems, bone loss, bloating. Sugar can cause or worsen binge eating, cancer, cataracts, colitis, constipation, depression, diabetes, difficulty concentrating, diverticulitis. Sugar can cause or worsen edema. That's when lots of fluid in your body and parts of you swell up. Fatigue, food cravings, gallstones, gout, heart disease, high bad cholesterol, hormonal problems, low good cholesterol, high blood pressure. Sugar can cause or worsen indigestion, insomnia, kidney stones, liver problems, menstrual difficulties, mental illness, mood swings, muscle pain, being fat, and all infections, colds, AIDS, tuberculosis, COVID, flu, yeast infections. Sugar can cause or worsen multiple sclerosis, tooth decay, how well I know, sadly, from many years ago when I was addicted to sugar as a kid and in my 20s. But I woke up, finally, with help. Sugar can cause or worsen ulcers, nearsightedness, early aging, hyperactivity and orneriness in kids, high triglycerides, kidney damage, kidney stones, heart disease. Sugar can cause or worsen varicose veins, emphysema, loss of minerals, periodontal disease, hypoglycemia, rheumatism, eczema, psoriasis, Crohn's disease, hemorrhoids, retina holes, and detachment. A poem by the woman Peace Pilgrim, whom I met many years ago. On the scarred battlefield where they forced me to go, I met a man that they said was my enemy, and I ran him through with my blade. And when I pulled it out and his blood gushed forth, I was suddenly filled with racking remorse. I've killed a man, I said. He was slim and youthful and frightened like me, not a devil, as they said he would be. They sent me to kill you, he sighed. By God, I wish you had done so, I swore. Why, I don't even know what I'm fighting for. Nor I, he breathed and died. A powerful poem, War by Peace Pilgrim, and another of her wonderful, powerful poems of truth, War Fever. That terrible blindness which makes your enemy appear like a devil to you and makes you look like a devil to him, war fever. That awful insanity which makes the same act brilliant strategy for you and foul treachery for the enemy, war fever. That frightful drunkenness which muddles the mind until wrong seems like right. Hate appears good. Murder a virtue. War fever. That horrible sickness for which no cure is sought, but instead ways are sought to spread the disease. War fever. Good night.
And when it's said